The silence didn't start with anger, it started with watching. Men sat at weddings, smiled, clapped, drank, and quietly took notes. Not of vows, but of outcomes. Years later, those same rooms filled again, this time with lawyers instead of music. Same faces, same men, less laughter, more fear. The lesson was slow, but it stuck. Marriage stopped looking like a promise and started looking like a risk you don't walk away from whole. When man in his late 30s tells himself he's just being cautious. Good job, calm life, no drama. He dates, he loves, he commits in every way that matters. But when the word marriage comes up, his chest tightens. Not because he hates women, not because he fears love, but because he's seen what happens when love changes its mind. Love can leave, the law does not. That truth sinks in deeper than any romance ever did. His father taught him to work, not to complain. A house was built brick by brick, year by year. Then one day, papers arrived. Court dates followed. Half the house gone. Kids on weekends. A man who once led his home now asked permission to see it. The son watched that quiet collapse and learned something no movie teaches. Marriage doesn't end when love ends. It ends when the system decides who keeps what. And the system rarely sides with the builder. We like to say marriage is about love. That sounds nice. It sounds clean. It's also false. Marriage is about merging lives under rules written by people who don't know you. Love is private. Marriage is public and legal. When feelings fade, the contract stays sharp. You don't divorce emotions, you divorce assets. Men learned this the hard way, watching friends lose years of effort in months of court. There's a lie men are fed early, that a good heart will protect them, that choosing the right woman makes them safe. But the risk is not the woman, the risk is the structure. Courts don't rule on intentions, they rule on income. The higher earner pays. The one with more loses more. That's not bitterness, that's math. And men who can count don't ignore numbers that large. A friend laughs and says, "It won't happen to me." Every man who lost half once said the same thing. Confidence isn't protection, love isn't armor. The contract doesn't care how loyal you were or how hard you tried. Marriage rewards optimism and punishes reality. Men who think long-term don't bet everything on short-term feelings, no matter how strong they feel today. Women aren't villains here, they're practical. They look for safety, they look for support. They understand that life is expensive and unstable. Men were taught to ignore that part, to prove love by risk. So one side plans, the other hopes. When it breaks, planning wins. The man who brought the most loses the most. And pretending this is unfair to say doesn't change how often it happens. There's a man still married who reads this quietly. He stays late at work. Not for money, but for peace. Home feels tense, leaving feels impossible. He's not counted as divorced, but he's already lost. Staying trapped doesn't mean winning. It means the cost of leaving is higher than the cost of dying slowly. Men see this too, and they take note. Marriage used to mean duty and roles. Clear lines, clear expectations. Today it's feelings first, contracts last. That order is backwards. Feelings change fast. Contracts move slow. When you bind the slow thing to the fast thing, something breaks. And it's usually the man who built more than he protected. He didn't fail at love. He failed to read the deal. So men pause now, they don't rush. They don't kneel as fast. They don't sign as easily. Not because they fear commitment, but because they respect consequences. Wisdom looks like hesitation to people who don't pay the price. And the price is clear now, written across court records and broken homes. This is only the first crack in the picture. The next step is worse. Because once men stop seeing marriage as romance and start seeing it as business, the numbers become impossible to ignore. And numbers don't lie even when love does. Math is where the fantasy dies. Numbers don't argue, they don't care how you feel. Men start adding things up late at night, not out loud, not with anger, just quietly. Assets, income, time, children, risk, reward. And when the total comes in, it looks nothing like the promise they were sold. A deal that only works if nothing ever changes is not a deal. It's a gamble. A man builds for 20 years. Long hours, missed sleep, stress he never talks about. Then one bad season hits the marriage. Not abuse, not betrayal, just boredom, just drift. Feelings change, papers follow. Suddenly the law treats his life's work like shared property, even if it was built alone. This is the moment men wake up. Not when love fades, but when ownership disappears. People say it's just money. That's easy to say when you didn't earn it. Money is time, money is sacrifice. Money is missed birthdays and ruined backs. Men don't fear being poor. They fear watching their effort handed to someone who walked away. Losing love hurts. Losing your life's work breaks something deeper. Women often say they want security. That's not wrong. But security funded by one person and controlled by another breeds imbalance. When one side knows the system protects them if they leave, commitment changes shape. Effort drops, respect fades. Men feel it. They sense when love becomes leverage. And once respect is gone, marriage turns cold fast. Look at how conflict plays out. In arguments, women threaten emotion. Men fear consequences. She says she's unhappy. He hears court dates. She wants space. He sees child support. That fear doesn't make him abusive or weak. It makes him cautious. You can't relax in a deal where exit destroys you. Men pull back not because they don't care, but because caring is dangerous. This is why men start treating marriage like a contract instead of a dream. Contracts assume failure. Dreams deny it. Adults prepare, children hope. A prenup is not hate, it's clarity. But clarity kills fantasy, and many women prefer fantasy because it keeps power hidden. When rules are spoken out loud, leverage disappears. There's anger toward men who ask for fairness. They're called cold, afraid, broken, but notice who benefits when men stay quiet and sign blind. Silence helps one side, truth helps both. If a deal is fair, it survives light. If it dies under questions, it was never fair to begin with. Men also notice something else. The system rewards leaving more than staying. Courts don't fix marriages, they end them. Lawyers profit from conflict. Peace doesn't pay. A calm split saves money, so the system pushes war. Men see how fast cooperation turns into strategy once money is on the table. Love leaves, tactics arrive, so men adapt, they delay. They avoid legal ties. They date without merging lives. They love without handing over control. This isn't rebellion, it's learning. The old script punished men who trusted too easily. The new one rewards restraint. Experience teaches faster than advice ever could. Women often blame men for pulling away. They say men changed. They did. Because reality corrected them. Men used to believe effort guaranteed loyalty. Now they know loyalty lasts only while feelings do, and feelings are unstable. A system built on unstable things will collapse again and again. But this isn't the end of the story. Because once men stop asking, will she love me forever, and start asking, what happens if she doesn't, a bigger truth appears. And that truth doesn't just challenge marriage. It challenges the entire idea of modern commitment. That's where this really gets uncomfortable. The final awakening rarely comes with a shout. It comes with a question echoing in the back of a man's mind. If commitment is real, why does the law need to enforce it? That question doesn't feel rebellious, it feels honest. Men have spent years trying to merge romance with reality, but reality keeps winning. And now they see the patterns, the expectations, the hidden exchanges beneath every promise. Love without clarity becomes a trap disguised as devotion. And the men who sense this shift don't become cold, they become deliberate. A man in his 40s sits across from someone he once thought he'd build a life with. The conversation is calm. She wants security. He wants fairness. She wants guarantees. He wants balance. But balance feels offensive to her now, as if asking for mutual protection means he loves less. And he sees it, how the idea of romance has been twisted into unquestioned sacrifice. A relationship built on fear of offense is already leaning toward collapse. He realizes that love shouldn't require blindness to stay alive. Men are starting to understand something that was once too uncomfortable to confront. Modern relationships often carry different expectations for each side. Women are encouraged to plan for safety. Men are encouraged to ignore it. One is taught to protect herself. The other is taught that protection kills magic. But magic that breaks under truth was never magic, just performance. And performances always end. Honesty isn't the enemy of love. It's the only thing that keeps love from turning into obligation. There comes a moment when a man stops asking how to make a marriage last and starts asking whether the environment allows it to. Stability can't grow in a system incentivized toward separation. Trust can't flourish when risk is one-sided. And commitment can't deepen when the rules punish one half more than the other. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. A partnership only thrives when both people stand to lose and gain equally. The men who walk away aren't running from responsibility. They're running from imbalance. They're running from a structure where one person can change their mind and the other pays the bill. They're running from a culture where boundaries are framed as distrust, but sacrifice is framed as proof of love. And as they step back, they discover something unexpected: peace. A peace built from autonomy, clarity, and the freedom to love without fear of being legally dismantled. But walking away doesn't mean isolation. Men still crave connection, touch, belonging. They still want partnership, shared dreams, and a life intertwined with someone meaningful. What they reject isn't intimacy. It's vulnerability without safeguards. So they create new models. Relationships based on openness instead of obligation. Futures built on mutual choice instead of legal binding. Love becomes stronger when it doesn't depend on force. Some women watch this trend with confusion, even anger. They think men are giving up, but they're not. They're evolving. They're refusing to sign contracts written for a world that no longer exists. They want relationships shaped by negotiation, not tradition. They want to protect what they build without losing what they feel. And this shift isn't anti-marriage, it's anti-blindness. When the environment changes, survival demands adaptation. The truth modern culture avoids is simple. Partnerships only thrive when both sides feel safe. Men haven't felt safe in marriage for a long time. Not emotionally, not legally, not financially. And safety isn't weakness, it's the foundation of commitment. A man cannot give his best where he fears losing everything. A relationship cannot deepen in the presence of silent dread. And now that fear is finally being named out loud, so what happens next? Men begin choosing relationships built on explicit agreements instead of unspoken assumptions. They start valuing boundaries as much as romance. They bring logic into spaces once reserved for fantasy. And strangely, it brings them closer to real connection. Love becomes a choice renewed daily, not a role locked by paperwork. And that conscious choice is richer than any vow whispered under pressure. And here lies the quiet twist in the tale. Men aren't rejecting love. They're demanding that love and law stop competing. They're asking for fairness, not distance. They're asking for honesty, not cynicism. They're asking for structure that protects both sides, not one. The future of relationships won't be built by fear. It will be built by those willing to face uncomfortable truths together and still choose each other afterward. If modern marriage wants to survive, it must evolve. If love wants to endure, it must grow up. And if men are to return to that altar, it will only be because the deal finally matches the devotion.